This show is sponsored by the law firm of Tony Kalagarakis and Associates.
إيمانويل أكسيدنت اتنرابا ناشا ليطي متبصل طاقة شكلي. اتلا نسيانة بدنا كيسس injury law و بيالباية قريمخ. إن آتن ينكل بتد بيتا خزموخن يطاني اتلوخن بوقارة مخبرون المنيان التلفون 8 أربع شوا وشا 8 تري وشا 5 خا إشتا يعني توكن بيت injuryrights.com. شمي إلى توني كالاغراكس كي يمزمن لشان خلية يما.
شلام عليكم. أنا ريبيكا سايمون. مجيبت يداعت شاميران قابلوخون ون كل بشانة. أرخن أمان أوديو إلي جوزيف جان. جوزيف جشيتت ألبو أتجامو 8 جابت ستيتد رود آيلاند أمريكا الدنيا تيلي. خادان أخونه و أربع خطفاي. دانت بلاشا قامايا أباه جوزيف من تركيا تيلون أمريكا. سبب أسماناي آرومان إمباير بقطالوا و براموا قصوراي جابت تركيا. بشراينا جو رود آيلاند و بجوارنا توما. جوزيف اتل bachelor's degree جابت engineering MS جو computer science و MBA من هارفارد يونيفرسيتي. تلايشنه ويلي بالخانة جو قوشن و ريتاير ويلي خا كابتن من نيفي. خيشلت لا تور جو فيتنام و دانت ديزرت اوبريشن ستورم ويلي جابت كويت بالخانة من سبيشال فورسز اوبريشن. هاد بداية جوزيف بليخلي من Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security و FBI مخادنا expert جو counter terrorism جابت Middle East و Al-Qaeda. It's the high security clearance من حكمة أمريكا. جوزيف هر بداية ويلي بالخانة جابت أمريكا وحكمة دوتان الدنيا وويلي سوبرفايز بعدا وبنيانه بناية قد إينا $1 مليون قيمة. جوزيف ويلي خا Associate Professor جو لافرن يونيفرسيتي ويلي خا Consultant و Co-Producer قحكمة فيلمت هوليوود وبليخلي من ريشاية موفي ستوديوز مع بارامونت و وارنر براذرز. يوشيت تري البا جوزيف و former Congressman باري جولدواتر جونيور شو تسالم خا organization بشمت Combat Veterans for Congress. قد هايورلا قدنا ناشد قد يقوشن فينا وباي رختي قكونغرس. جو شلام عليكم. I welcome you.
Thank you.
Thank you for agreeing to speak with us today.
Thank you.
Joseph, I know that your mother has been a special influence in your life, and you have a very soft spot for her. Would you please tell us a little bit about her life and your father's life, and how they happened to migrate to the United States from Mesopotamia?
Yes, my mom and dad were raised in Mesopotamia. At the time it was called Mesopotamia. And the family, originally the family came from Mosul, and they migrated to Midyat in 1800. And the eldest member of that family had 2 sons. One was named Shemes because he was a deacon of the church, and the other's name was Hermes. And the Hermes family became very, very wealthy in Midyat. And my grandfather was elected to as an attorney general in that region, which was unusual for a Christian, until the Turks and the Kurds, the Ottoman Empire, decided to go after Christians. They went after the Assyrians, they went after the Greeks, and they went after the Armenians. They killed about 1.5 million Armenians, about 800,000 Greeks, and about 700,000 Assyrians. Near the turn of the century, about 1915. My mother saw her mother starve to death, and saw her brother starve to death. Her mother died from diphtheria, I believe. And the congregational missionaries had a compound in Midyat, and they brought my mother and her brother and some cousins into that compound. And eventually, at the time, my grandfather was in the United States, traveling when this happened.
How did he make it to the United States during
He-
World War One?
It was before World War I, and he had run for re-election, and had lost his re-election. So he decided to go to the United States and meet with some political leaders in the country. And after he left, is when this event occurred. So when he found out he had his children in the missionary compound, he brought them to the United States as refugees.
Did he lose any children? His wife? What did they do?
He lost his wife. He lost one of his sons. He lost his brothers. The 21 of the eldest members of that family were forced to kneel, and they were shot behind their heads. And there's some terrible stories that my mother told me about what happened during that period. Anyway, they came to the United States. My grandfather brought his brother, his two daughters, and his son to the United States, and their cousins came to the United States. And at that time, they lost everything. Although they were very wealthy, they lost everything they had. So they had to just work. There was no welfare at that time in the United States, so they had to work. And
What did your mother do?
my mother worked in not a mill, but a place where they processed clothing and lace. And my father worked in a mill. My mother and father got married because my grandfather liked my father because he was a deacon of the Assyrian church. And he paired up my mom and dad, and
Arranged marriage.
yes,
No dating.
no, it was arranged marriage back in those days. And my father worked in a mill, and my mother worked, and she eventually worked in the high school in the city, and but they worked. They didn't have any welfare, and of course they were legal immigrants into this country. My mother had to wait for 6 months to come in legally into this country.
Where did she wait in Turkey?
She waited in Marseille.
Oh, she went to France,
She
Marseille.
went to France with her sister, and they had to wait until there was a quota for them to come into this country, and then they came in. So anyway, I grew up in Central Falls, Rhode Island, and with my sisters. I had 4 sisters, elder sisters. I was the youngest and the only boy in the family. And my dad passed away when I was in high school. And
How did your mother manage taking care of 5 kids,
she did,
working at a factory?
She worked 2 jobs, and she raised the children, and 3 of us went to college. And again, we had no welfare. And she was a good hard worker. She sewed everybody's clothes, and she cooked. She was very frugal with her grocery shopping, and she cooked for the family. I never knew I was poor. I was poor, but I never knew it because she said we were not poor. We were rich because we were in the United States. She loved this country. And I told Congressman Goldwater about how much she loved this country, and then she passed away. And so I established a scholarship in the local high school in her name.
In Rhode Island.
In Rhode Island. And he told Senator Barry Goldwater, his father, about
The former presidential
nominee.
He made a speech on the floor of the Senate about my mother. And I have a copy of that. I think I sent it to you.
Yes, I have it.
And it's in the 90th Congressional Record. And I just think that an Assyrian young girl at age 16 who came into this country and loved this country is now a part of our history and in the Congressional Record of the United States. I think she would be pleased and shocked that Senator Goldwater spoke about her on the floor of the
And
Senate.
I think very few Assyrians know about this fact, and they will be very pleased to know that back in the early century or mid-century, middle of the last century, we had an Assyrian mentioned on the floor of the Senate, and she is in the annals of history.
Well, I'm pleased with that. She was probably the best American. I tell my daughters that she's the best American I ever knew. And I also told Senator Goldwater she was absolutely the best American I ever knew. She loved this country. She loved the presidents. Didn't matter what party they were in. The presidents were always her presidents. And that's what she tried to instill in me.
Did your parents speak Assyrian to you when you were growing up in Rhode Island?
No, my mother insisted that everybody speak English because she wanted us to be able to compete in this country, and we should learn the language of the country. She didn't feel we should be speaking Assyrian. I'm sad about that a little bit because I would like to have learned a little bit about Assyrian, but I think she had vision, and her children did very well in this country because they were able to compete in the language of the community. So it was visionary for her to feel that way.
And she was very big on education.
Yes.
That's how come three of you went to university and got your education, and you're a very highly educated gentleman.
Well, thank you.
Were there a lot of Assyrians? Was there an Assyrian community in Rhode Island back then?
Oh yeah, huge Assyrian community. My dad was the deacon of the Assyrian church, St. Ephraim's in Central Falls. And every year we had a Maharajan, which I thought was incredible. And as I said, we didn't have a lot of money, but at that Maharajan, my dad said we could spend whatever we wanted because the money was going to the church, and he didn't care. Even if we didn't have it, he encouraged us to buy things and enjoy ourselves. I used to look forward to that annual event.
How afflicted your parents were having seen the genocide at an age where they could remember what happened to their siblings, their relatives?
Well, my mom, I remember growing up, my mother never let us leave. If we took food and put it on our plate, she required that we eat it. She would talk about not wasting food because her brother starved to death. And she felt very strongly that food, if we had the food, there were people in the world who didn't have food, and we shouldn't waste food. That was one thing that affected her entire life. The other thing that affected her was her strength in religion. When I was younger, I told my mother, these Muslims were killing all the Christians because they refused to say that Jesus Christ was not the Son of God. Why didn't you just say, okay, he's not the Son of God? And when they left, why didn't you just say, Jesus is the Son of God? She said, no, Ibni. She called me Ibni, that's son. She would say, no, Ibni. You have to stand up for Jesus Christ no matter what. And that was another thing that affected her throughout her life. She was a very strong Christian woman, and she insisted we go to church every single Sunday. I never missed, and eventually I taught Sunday school, but the church was the center of our family, and that was another thing. She saw some terrible things, but she never told us about the terrible things she saw. I don't think she felt she should do that, so I don't know about the terrible things she saw.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Hermes family, which is your mother's family, come from a pedigree of success and accomplishments, and I believe she is related to the Hermes family that have the clothing line
and handbags.
Very couture and top of the line Hermes in France.
Yes, my family name is Hermes, Hermiz. The couture in Paris is Hermes. But when I was at the Naval Academy, my uncle, who was my mother's brother who came to this country, had me meet with the representative, the son of the Hermes family, and they told me that we were related to these very famous people in France who were Assyrians and had started a business. I have a nephew now. His name is Stamp, Christopher Stamp. He has a business as well, and he's in the clothing business, and he has been heralded as one of the top 5 male clothing creators in the country. He's been on the front page of GQ. He's been in GQ magazine a number of times, and he travels all over the world. So we've got a chip off the old block who's doing that in my family right now.
And what is his name?
His name is Christopher Stamp, and it's stamped. They can see this on the internet. It's Christopher Stamp, and he's got quite a impressive line of clothing.
So is the line of clothing under his name, Stamp, Christopher
Yeah,
Stamp?
stamped.
Stamped.
Yes.
Very nice. It's nice to. We would love to have him back in our community and acknowledge him and give him our special Assyrian love.
Well, if you buy his clothes, he'd probably do anything for you.
If he can afford it.
Yes.
Tell me about your time in the Navy. You spent 30 years of your life in the Navy with multiple tours of Vietnam and also in Kuwait. Tell me how that affected your life.
Well, you know, when you go to one of the services, we have 5 service academies in this country, and when you go to a service academy, you're being trained to go into combat. There's no other reason to go to a service academy unless you're going to be in combat. And of course the Army, Navy, Air Force, and the Coast Guard and the Merchant Marine Academy all have service academies. And it was instilled in me to go into combat. And when I was in my 3rd year at the Naval Academy, President Kennedy came and spoke to the Naval Academy and encouraged us to go to Vietnam to protect the Catholics who had migrated from the north into the south because of the communist genocide of Christians. And he said it was our duty to protect those Catholics who had fled to the south. So I was motivated to go to Vietnam. Of course, that's not what happened in our country. We had demonstrations all over the place, but we were motivated to protect the people of South Vietnam from the north. And I had 3 tours there, and I lost a lot of my classmates there. My class, the Naval Academy class, was called the Vietnam class because we lost more people in Vietnam than any other graduating class. And of course we all went back and kept going back. We were trying to win that war. Subsequently, I found out that the Secretary of Defense never intended us to win that war, which was sad. Subsequently, I went on to get in combat in Kuwait, Operation Desert Storm, and I had 7 combat tours, or tours, not necessarily combat tours, with special operations. I went to Africa. I went to some countries I still can't talk about, but that was the purpose of my being in the military. Just like many other military academy graduates, or military or naval academy graduates, we just do our duty and go in harm's way if we're required to.
Did you ever sustain any injuries?
No, I wasn't. Well, I ended up in a hospital in Oman. I got injured in an operation with Navy SEALs, but I wasn't shot. I just got injured. That's the only time I recall being injured in my tour duty.
Do you have any pain going back, thinking, flashbacks, things of this nature?
No, you know, we hear about all these people in the military who are handicapped mentally. And we had millions of people who went to Vietnam and came back, and they were well adjusted. They were police officers. They were congressmen. they were milkmen, they were businessmen, they construction people. They had no problems. A certain percentage of the people who serve have problems, and we feel bad about that. They have PTSD, and we try to protect them. But the vast majority of the millions of people who've served in the military come back and they're well adjusted, and they're good Americans. But we do take care of the wounded warriors.
إيمان وايلة أكسيدنت اتنرابا ناشا ليطي متبصلتا قد شكلي. اتلا نسيانة بدنا كيسس ات injury law و بيالباية قريمخ. إن آتن ينكل بتت بيتا خزموخن يطانة اتلوخن بوقارة مخبرون المنيان التلفون 8 أربع شوا وشو 8 تري وشو 5 خا يعني توكن بيت injuryrights.com. شمي إلى توني كالاغراكس كي يمزمن لشان خلية يما.
Let's fast forward to 2009. You and former Congressman Barry Goldwater Jr., the son of Senator Barry Goldwater, established the Combat Veterans for Congress. Tell me how that came about.
We were speaking, Barry and I were speaking with several other people. One of them was a Marine who was in Beirut when they blew up the barracks. He survived that. And we were talking about how after World War II, 90% of the people serving in Congress had served in the military. And they were all very protective of the defense budget. They were very protective of the men serving. And today, very small percentage of the people in Congress have served. And they don't protect the military people. They don't ensure we have a good military budget so we don't run out of money. So we said we've got to get more people into the Congress who had served in the military. Well, that's a huge undertaking. In order to, I'm approached by thousands of people every year who want to run for the city, county, state offices, mayor, city councilman. To minimize the effort, we decided to focus on Congress and only members of Congress who served in combat. Even with that, try to minimize the heavy workload. The work each year for the last 10 years has been excruciating in trying to deal with all the people who want to run to Congress. Right now, I'm dealing with 40 people in 16 states, 40 combat veterans who want to run for Congress. Now, that's a huge undertaking. But there are thousands of others who approach me who want to run for different offices. We can't help them. We encourage them to continue, but we just don't have the ability to help them.
How do you select who you would like to help running for Congress? Is there an interview process? Do you look at the resume? Or, what determines that you help one and not the other?
Well, we have a mission statement that's on our website, and the first step in the process is to tell the people to read our mission statement, and if they agree with the mission statement, we will proceed with the next step. We've tried to do that with Democrats, and we have never had one Democrat agree to our mission statement.
What is your mission statement?
Well, it's a long, they have to
What's the gist of it?
Be a good American, help our country, protect and defend the Constitution, protect the Bill of Rights, ensure that U.S. history is taught in the city schools, to stop the out-of-control spending by irresponsible members of Congress. Everything in there is a positive step. There's nothing negative in our mission statement. And if people agree with that, then we're willing to work with them. I've interviewed 554 combat veterans in the last 10 years in all 50 states. We've endorsed 123 combat veterans in 40 states, 93 of them won their primary elections, and 35 of them, we helped 35 of them get elected to Congress, 3 senators and 32 congressmen.
Who are the 3 senators?
Oh, there's Tom Cotton, John McCain, and can't think of the third one. He was from Illinois, but
Still a senator?
yes, senator from Illinois. But the list of all the endorsed combat veterans is on our website. People can go there and see that. They can see the 123 people we endorsed on the alumni page of our website. We have a copy of their bio, and we also have a photo of them in combat gear. So they can see the individual and they can read about their background.
What is the name of your website?
The Combat Veterans for Congress.org. It's veterans, plural, Combat Veterans for Congress.org, www.
Do you have, from time to time, events that you hold?
We have gala events where we bring the endorsed combat veterans and introduce them to the National Press Corps. We normally have about 48 representatives from media from all over the country who come and video the event. We have a keynote speaker. We've had some very interesting keynote speakers. We've had astronaut Buzz Aldrin. We've had Governor Sarah Palin, Governor Rick Perry, Dinesh D'Souza, Secretary Ben Carson, and many other people who have spoken at our events.
When is your next event? Are you planning another event?
We are planning an event in September of 2020, and we've asked for the Vice President Pence to be our keynote speaker. That's going to be quite a task, but we've got some other excellent backups for our keynote speaker.
Where would the event be?
It'll be in San Diego.
California. Do you have any children?
I have twin daughters, Jennifer and Jessica.
What are they doing? Are they into?
Jennifer is a licensed child and family therapist in the state of California. She has a very robust and growing practice. She's a very sensitive young lady, and we've always thought this was a great place for her because she fit right into that mold. My other daughter is Jessica, and she's in a very fine senior executive position with the Helen Woodward Family Center. The Helen Woodward Family Center is the largest animal center in the world. It's on 11 acres of land in Rancho Santa Fe, and Jessica travels all over the world and all over the country to encourage people to protect orphan animals. She just came back from Estonia. She's been to Puerto Rico. She's been to Australia. I think she's planning to go to Japan, and she travels all over the country. She's rung the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange and also at the opening bell at the NASDAQ. So she's recognized, and she's on TV just about every week.
Speaking of traveling, have you ever traveled to Turkey?
No, that's one place I was not, when I was with the FBI, it was not a place I was encouraged to go to. There are certain places I have not been asked to, I've been encouraged not to travel to.
Are you still doing any consultations with the Department of Defense or the FBI or Department of Homeland Security?
Well, I'm still very close to a lot of my FBI squad mates that I serve with in the FBI, and I'm a member of the FBI program called InfraGuard, and I do op-eds on a regular basis about highly sensitive, intelligent issues, and I distribute them to many people in the military.
Did you ever have aspirations of running for office yourself? You're
No.
helping so many people, set foot in the Congress or Senate of the United States. What about yourself?
No, I'm not. I've been asked multiple times to run for Congress. I'm not interested at all in running for Congress. I'm interested in helping people get into Congress who are going to do a good job. I think I'm doing a much better job of recruiting and endorsing and campaigning for people to run for Congress. If I were in Congress, I'd be focused on raising money for my own race every 2 years, and that's not in my interest at all.
How do you see the future of this country? You've been involved in many facets of the government, and running people for Congress. You're very well educated and well versed on political issues. How do you see our future?
Well, the real problem with our country today is Common Core that was installed in 2008 removed the
Common Core is the educational system, the new educational system taught to the children, K through 12.
The U.S. history of our country, and inserted a poor example of the U.S. history. It doesn't talk about the great things we've done, about the great economic programs we've had, and all the millions of people we saved from slavery. It is a terrible example of U.S. history, and it's turning the youth of this country against America and indoctrinating them in socialism. Today, 51% of the youth prefer socialism to democracy, and that's a direct result of the educational system that was installed by the Obama administration back in 2008. We've got to get rid of the Common Core program that detracts from the U.S. history. The U.S. history is incredible history, probably the best history of any country in the world, and this is foreboding. And of course, today we see socialism being promulgated at these debates by people running for the presidency. It's for me, it's shocking, and I think the American people have to make a big change in the educational system of this country.
Joe, as far as Assyrianism, why did you stay away from the community who would really love to have you?
I didn't stay away from the community. I went to the Naval Academy. Incidentally, one of my classmates at the Naval Academy was Assyrian, Robert Yohanan. And we're very close today. We communicate regularly. We were friendly when I was at the Naval Academy. And when you go into the military and you travel all over the world with people in the military of all services, not just the Navy, you're away from Assyrians. It was not that I tried to stay away from Assyrians. My family is Assyrian, and of course we've had 50 family reunions in a row here I've tried to attend, where we support our history and our background. But I didn't try to stay away from the Assyrians at all.
Did you marry an Assyrian?
No, I didn't marry an Assyrian. I married a lovely Christian woman who I met while I was out on the West Coast, and we had 2 beautiful daughters.
Are your twin daughters, Jennifer and Jessica, do they consider themselves Assyrians?
Well, we've been talking about it their entire lives, and they know that their history is Assyrian, and they're proud of their background.
How do we entice you to come to our gatherings, come to our events? I am certain that Assyrians of all ages and backgrounds and origins would love to shake your hand, meet you, speak with you. Some of them, I am certain, will even invite you to their home for some dolma.
Well, that would be a great draw. If you had events, Assyrian events where you had Assyrian food, I'd be very interested in attending because I'm hooked on my mother's cooking. I like the Assyrian cooking, and I like the food that they prepared. So that would be one draw for me. I am so busy these days working with people all over the country, in 16 states right now, actually 20 states, trying to get them ready to run for Congress, that I don't have a lot of free time. I'm working a 7-day week doing what I do because I only have volunteers working for me. Any money we raise goes to the people running for Congress.
Is there any time soon that Captain Joseph John will slow down and look at his surroundings and take a fresh breath of air and say, you know, I'm going to relax?
Well, my daughters have been encouraging me to take a fresh breath of air and relax. And when the current president got elected, I had an opportunity to go back to Washington and in some position, but they encouraged me to stay here because I'd been traveling so much. And so I stayed in San Diego, and now they're encouraging me to stop what I'm doing with the Combat Veterans for Congress and go sailing. I like to sail and spend time traveling and go to the beach, etc.
Any grandchildren?
I have one granddaughter who's quite a dancer. Her name's Jillian.
How old is she?
She's 13 years old, and she competes nationally in dance events once a year. So she's into dance in a big way.
The Hermes blood. It just follows you guys through your grandchildren.
Well, she's a lovely girl.
Well, it was very nice talking to you, Captain Joseph John. We love to have you amongst us. You are one of us. And I am so happy that we got a chance to introduce you to our viewers here. And I don't know, they may even contact you or show up at your event.
Well, we would encourage as many of your supporters to attend one of our Gala events and support these combat veterans for Congress who are intent on protecting and defending the Constitution. They believe in the Bill of Rights, and they put their lives on the line for their country. And one of the things the Assyrians can do is support these people. They're high-quality, patriotic Americans.
Definitely. They pay their dues with their blood and sweat to our country, and they're always appreciated. And we thank you for your service and also for your time that you spend with us, with our viewers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain.
Bye-bye.
مغبن آتوراي قامو برامت سوراي جرى قدين رابا أنان قايا أبو ولا من شيخ لهجدانا سبب يما بابت كابتن جوزيف جون قد لابشلون قديلة وتيلون أمريكا بشرون أتخيل السورة قد دنيا يابي قد إلي رابا منتية ورابا هنانا تخمنون بإما البيجاناي قد أخنا بيشخ يوفي سهدي إن أبيبا آني خاية كما أمتم دابيبا لناش جبار جابو وديلة يا البنات جيلا لا من شيتون قطلة خيش الفيرلي إنا هلام أفكتو قديم بياشلة خامن نيشت شميران ميديا ومريم شمالتا أهل قد إذن تدبشران تبقخ بسوراي قد تليقنا ورابا من اللخبضاية ما دخلن قد يوخن ومنوخن بربولن بيوخن وبطلابن منوخن اتلوخن دانا وبرسد سبورت اوديتون لكامبات Veterans for Congress و ايفنتو ازيتون لم وسبسكرايب اوديتون على نيوزلتر قد كابتن جوزيف جون قديان شادور لي ابيتون رابا بسينا من دانوخن